Hello everyone. Today we will delve into a shocking story that took place in Osaka, Japan. This city is known for its rich culture and hospitality, but it was also the scene of a horrific murder that changed everything. The case not only shocked the public because of its brutality, but also made people question their safety in a city they once considered peaceful. Who is the killer hiding in the shadows? Let's uncover this mysterious story together. On June 17, 1985, a Monday in the Sanbonmatsu area of Koriki Town, Kitakachigari District, Niigata Prefecture, southeast of Osaka, a farmer finishing his day's work was heading home when a cardboard box lying in the bamboo forest along the roadside caught his attention. Curiosity piqued, he approached it to see what was inside. Upon opening the box, he was horrified to discover a dismembered body. The gruesome scene, combined with the unbearable stench, caused him to recoil in shock, nearly collapsing. He hurried to the nearest public phone booth and called the police. The Takata police station in Niigata Prefecture quickly responded to the scene. The victim was a woman around 20 years old, her body cut into 6 parts: head, torso, and limbs. It was a clear case of murder, body disposal, and gruesome mutilation. The police immediately set up a special task force to investigate. The autopsy revealed that the victim's stomach contained remnants of rice rolls and stomach medication. The rice grains confirmed that she had eaten the rolls before her death. There were signs of strangulation on her neck, indicating that she had been attacked before dying. The estimated time of death was between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. the previous day. Soon after, based on missing person reports, the police were able to identify the victim. The victim was identified as Chinen Ritsu, a student from a special school in Osaka who had an intellectual disability. 2 months earlier, on one afternoon, Ritsu had secretly escaped from her school's dormitory, claiming that she was going to a laundromat in Tondabayashi City, Osaka, to attend a vocational training course. After that, she disappeared without a trace. The following day, when Ritsu was found to be missing, the school official reported it to the police. Although Ritsu was not as quick-witted as her peers, she was always loved and cared for by her family. Witnessing their daughter's brutal murder, Ritsu's family was devastated. Unfortunately, due to the limitations of investigative technology at the time, the police were unable to find any further leads. 3 months after the murder, the Takata police chief's office received a strange letter. The postmark indicated that the letter was sent from Osaka Prefecture. The white envelope bore the words "Chief of Police Takada," written in slanted black ballpoint pen, and on the front the phrase "The 21 Faces Freak" was printed. All the letters were drawn with a ruler and pen, suggesting that the sender wanted to hide their handwriting. This reminded the police chief of the Glyco Candy Company case, a shocking crime that had occurred over a year earlier, in June 1984. The perpetrator in that case had called themselves the 21 Faces Freak, a name derived from a fictional character in the famous detective stories of Edogawa Rampo. Was this the same 21 Faces Freak in the Ritsu case? The chief secretly thought that the killer was openly challenging the police. The letter read, "I killed Chinen Ritsu. If you catch me, go ahead and arrest me," in an arrogant tone, daring the police. Not only that, the letter described the details of the crime. At 2 p.m. on June 16, 1985, the killer met Chinen Ritsu in the Tsutenkaku area. He saw that she was a young student, attractive but not particularly quick-witted. He had ill intentions and lured her to a sushi restaurant for a meal. After eating, he took Ritsu to his apartment and assaulted her. Afterwards, he gave Ritsu 10,000 yen, approximately $65.44 USD at current exchange rates, as compensation, thinking it would make her happy for a while. However, Ritsu appeared to scorn the offer, saying, Is this all? Enraged, the killer strangled her to death. He then used a kitchen knife, saw, and other tools to dismember the body, placing the parts into a cardboard box. The next day, he rented a truck and transported the box to a bamboo forest in Niigata Prefecture. The details of the location and method of the crime described in the letter had not been released by the police. Therefore, it was clear that the letter came from the killer. However, was the killer in this case the same 21 Faces freak as in Ritsu's case, or was this just a copycat crime? This remained a subject for further investigation. The police reviewed security footage from the Tsutenkaku area and discovered that Ritsu had been seen at the sushi restaurant with a middle-aged man. However, due to the large number of customers coming and going daily, the staff could not recall any specific details about the man. It was known that Ritsu enjoyed visiting bars. Based on this clue, the police compiled a list of more than 500 suspects. Among them was a man named Kamata, who sent a letter to the police explaining that he was not the murderer. The letter included a used train ticket from JR Shin Osaka Station to Tokyo. The man wrote, "I am not the killer. I was in Tokyo on the day of the crime." The police found fingerprints on the letter, but they were incomplete. After comparing them with the fingerprints on the envelope of the 21 Faces freak, they noticed some similarities but concluded that they didn't match. However, later it was revealed that the police's conclusion had been incorrect. The police also investigated the laundromat Ritsu had mentioned before her disappearance. They visited the laundromat, questioned the owner and employees, and checked the store's security cameras. But no unusual findings emerged. After a prolonged investigation with no progress, the case gradually became cold and turned into a mystery. 9 years later, another murder occurred in the same area. On April 3, 1994, in the mountainous forest area of Kamijushi village in Habikino City, Osaka Prefecture, a couple went into the forest to dig for bamboo shoots. As they chatted along the way, they hoped for a bountiful harvest. When they reached a section of the bamboo forest, they noticed an unusually raised mound of earth. Curious, they dug into it and were horrified to find a dismembered body. The police immediately arrived at the scene, and the gruesome sight left everyone speechless. The victim's head and limbs had been severed, with the exception of the left leg and torso. The other parts were missing, and the chest and lower abdomen had been hollowed out, showing the killer's brutality. The police immediately linked this murder to the case of Chinen Ritsu from 9 years earlier, due to the similar method of dismemberment. While continuing their search of the forest for further evidence, the police unexpectedly discovered another body. The next day, about 150 meters north of where the first body was found, near a provincial road, the police found a third body. This body had decomposed and was reduced to just bones. Based on the cut marks on the bones, it was clear that the victim had been dismembered using a saw and other tools. Both victims were women around 40 years old. The police concluded that this was a case of serial killings committed by the same perpetrator. The brutal nature of the murders led the police to believe that a serial killer with perverse behaviors was operating in the area. 3 months later, the identity of the second victim was confirmed to be Uranishi Kazuki, 45, through dental records. Uranishi lived in the Tenkachaya area of Higashi Nishi District, Osaka, and worked as a bar hostess. Due to the nature of her job, her family did not immediately report her disappearance to the police. It was only when her co-workers could no longer contact her that they realized something was wrong. 4 months later, the identity of the first victim was also confirmed to be Nakano Kimeko, 38, the owner of a small restaurant in Chuo District, Osaka. Nakano was known for her friendly demeanor and was beloved by many of her customers. In addition, she ran a second-hand clothing business, specializing in buying and selling unique, high-quality items at affordable prices. After Nakano went missing, her customers assumed she had gone on a trip, so no one reported her disappearance. The police eventually combined the 3 murder cases into a single investigation, naming it the Osaka dismemberment serial murder case. Due to the extremely serious nature and brutality of the crimes, the National Police Agency, NPA, of Japan classified the case as an important case, assigned with the number 122. In Japan, cases assigned an NPA case number are considered exceptionally serious and are prioritized for national investigation. For example, the Norio Nagayama case and the Glico Candy Company case, which we previously discussed, were assigned case numbers 108 and 114. The gravity of the Osaka dismemberment serial murder case was indisputable. However, at the time of the murders, the Aum Shinrikyo sarin gas attack on the Tokyo subway had become the focal point of national attention in Japan. This shocking event dominated the front pages of all media outlets, causing the Osaka dismemberment case to receive much less attention. The police continued to review the list of convicted criminals in Osaka and uncovered a significant lead. At a garment factory in Chuo District, Osaka, a man had stolen 78 pairs of trousers, which were stored in a cardboard box in the factory's warehouse. Security footage showed that the man did not try to hide his actions. On the contrary, he was calm and natural, as if he were simply performing a regular task. He carried the cardboard box on his shoulder and confidently walked out of the warehouse, even casually glancing at the camera as he passed by. None of the staff recognized him as the thief. It wasn't until an inventory check was conducted that they realized items had been stolen. In April 1994, the thief was arrested at a residential area in Osaka. When the identity of the thief was revealed, the neighbors were shocked because he was a man well-liked by everyone. This man was named Kamata Yasutoshi, 54, and he had grown up in Mihara City, Hiroshima Prefecture. According to Kamata, his father had been a famous hotel magnate, but after his father's death, the family fell into decline. Kamata was forced to drop out of school in the 11th grade to move to Osaka and train as a chef. At the age of 20, he married and had 2 children. After his wife passed away, Kamata moved his 2 young children frequently and eventually settled in the Nishi district of Osaka. There, he married a bar hostess, but the second marriage lasted only a month due to conflicts between his new wife and his children from his first marriage. Kamata made a living as a street vendor, primarily selling clothes and accessories. Thanks to his affordable prices, his stall was always busy, especially with women. Kamata was always friendly, creating a sense of trust and warmth with his customers. Many regular customers even referred to him affectionately as Brother Kamata or Uncle Kamata. People in the area often saw Kamata riding his bike with his Maltese dog in the basket. The small, cute dog with its white fur created an image completely opposite to that of a thief. However, for those who knew Kamata well, his arrest was not surprising. Kamata was a two-faced person, prone to boasting and exaggerating the truth. His father was not a hotel magnate at all. Instead, he was a businessman who sold toothpicks to inns. Kamata's second marriage fell apart not due to a conflict between his wife and his children, but because he frequently abused his wife. Whenever Kamata became violent, his children would intervene, even protecting their stepmother. After the divorce, Kamata abandoned his children for his ex-wife to raise, and he moved in with his mistress. Friends described Kamata as sensitive and hot-tempered, prone to anger over trivial matters. Once, while dining with friends, he became enraged when the meal cost more than expected, shouting loudly in frustration. Whenever he was angry or agitated, Kamata had the habit of choking others. Many restaurant and bar owners in the area avoided him due to his troublesome behavior. The clothes Kamata sold were stolen. He typically targeted factories with lax management systems and poor security. After several reconnaissance trips and by learning the factory's schedule, He would disguise himself as a potential customer or distributor and visit the factories. He would then quickly steal one or more boxes of clothing and leave without being detected. Since the clothes were stolen and lacked proper documentation, Kamata could not sell them through legitimate distribution channels. As a result, he chose the Tobita Shinchi area, where many people passed by, to sell his stolen goods and make quick profits. In October 1989 and August 1991, Kamata was arrested twice and served time for stealing clothing. In 1993, he was released from prison and quickly returned to his old ways, getting arrested again for similar charges just 1 year later. During the investigation of the Chinin Ritsu case, the police received a letter from a person claiming that they were not the killer. The sender was Kamata Yasutoshi. To avoid confusion, the police used the latest fingerprint technology and discovered an astonishing truth. Kamata was not only the person who had sent the explanatory letter earlier, but also the one who had sent the challenge letter to the police under the pseudonym the 22 Faces Freak. Due to limitations in forensic technology at the time, the police had not detected the matching fingerprints on the two letters previously. After his arrest, Kamata confessed to all of his crimes, including the Chinen Ritsu case and the subsequent dismemberment murders. The police also examined Kamata's rental car log and found that the mileage during the time of Chinen Ritsu's murder perfectly matched the distance traveled to the location where the body was disposed of. Kamata also provided clear details about the two other bodies found afterward. In July 1993, Kamata met Uranishi Kazuyuki, 45, at a small restaurant in Nishi District, Osaka. Kamata often carried large sums of cash with him when he visited the restaurant, which made the owner view him as a wealthy man. When Kamata invited Uranishi to his apartment for the night, she agreed without suspicion. At Kamata's apartment, Uranishi was pushed onto the bed. Just as they were about to engage in sexual activity, Uranishi jokingly asked, "How much are you going to pay me?" This comment drove Kamata into a rage, and he strangled her to death. After dismembering her body, Kamata used his car to transport it to a forest in Kami-Jushi village, Habikino City, where he disposed of the remains. 8 months later, Kamata used the same method to approach Nakano Kimeko, 38, a bar hostess. He invited her to spend the night at his apartment. Since Nakano was looking to sell some of her leftover clothes at a low price, the two discussed a possible deal after their sexual encounter. At that time, Kamata had stolen a large box of designer coats and saw an opportunity to make some money. However, Nakano thought the coats should be given to her as a gift. This sparked a disagreement between the two. In a fit of anger, Kamata strangled Nakano to death and then dismembered her body, disposing of it in a forest in Habikino, just 150 meters away from where he had disposed of Uranishi Kazuyuki's remains. In addition to these 3 murders, the police suspected Kamata might be linked to another case. They showed him a photograph of a young girl and asked if he knew her. Kamata stared at the photo for a long time before nodding. The girl in the photo was Tsukuda Miyoko, a 9-year-old 3rd-grade student from Sumiyoshi Elementary School in Osaka. According to Kamata's confession, in the afternoon of January 1987, around 4 p.m., he met Miyoko on the streets of Sumiyoshi. He had dark intentions and pretended to ask for directions in order to approach the young girl. After receiving her answer, he even gave Miyoko 200 yen as a thank you gift. When he looked into her innocent eyes, his perverse desires took over, and he lured her to his apartment with the intention of committing an indecent act. Upon witnessing the horrifying scene, Miyoko became terrified, crying out for help in vain. Her weak resistance only made Kamata more furious. He strangled Miyoko to death. Afterward, he violated her body but did not dismember her, not out of remorse, but because he thought her small body could easily fit into a cardboard box without the need to cut her up. But that wasn't the end. He also called Miyoko's home and school, extorting her family for a ransom of 30 million yen. Miyoko's family received a total of 5 extortion calls, but the ransom was too large for them to afford, and they could only wait in despair. Miyoko was a sweet and kind girl who loved animals. Her smile always brightened those around her. When news of her disappearance spread, her teachers and classmates worked hard to search for her. On Miyoko's desk at school, her friends left many notes with hopes for her safe return. "We will always wait for you in class. You must come back safe," etc. In May 1987, Miyoko's body was found inside a cypress log on the southern slope of Koyasan. The body had nearly completely decomposed. According to media reports, after Miyoko's death, people prayed for her soul to rest in peace, to rise up, illuminated by the moon, shining brightly forever. As a result, local monks gave her the posthumous name Unketsu Miyobido. The police reviewed the 5 extortion calls in hopes of finding a clue, but they were unsuccessful. During the interrogation of Kamata, the police noticed strange behavior when he was asked about Miyoko's case, and as they suspected, Kamata confessed to the entire crime. It seemed that the case was nearly closed with all the horrifying details, but Kamata continued his confession, stating that the Chinen Ritsu case was not the first murder he had committed. More than 2 weeks before the Ritsu case, in May 1985, Kamata met 46-year-old Higashi Chichi Sachiko at a bar in Sumiyoshi. Sachiko, a housewife with 3 children, had left her husband due to marital issues and had been working as a bar hostess to support herself. Hearing this, Kamata took advantage of the situation, playing the role of a caring older brother and comforting Sachiko. When she was emotionally vulnerable, he invited her to his home for a meal. After dinner, Kamata began drinking heavily. Seeing this, Sachiko kindly warned him that drinking too much could harm his health. For some reason, this well-intentioned comment made Kamata lose control, and he strangled her to death. This was the first time Kamata killed someone. However, he acted very calmly and decisively, as if he had done this before. He carefully laid down a carpet and plastic sheeting in the room, then used a saw, kitchen knife, and other tools to dismember the body. Finally, he drove the body to a forest near Hirano-cho in Nishikobi, Hyogo, to dispose of it. In May 1995, the police found Sachiko's body in the forest. By then, the body had been reduced to bones, but there were still signs of dismemberment. The murder had occurred 10 years earlier. Sachiko's husband reported her missing 3 days after she left home. At first, he thought it was just a marital dispute, and she would return soon. But after 3 days, 1 week, 1 month, and eventually a year passed with no sign of her, he realized something was wrong. The police immediately launched an investigation, but it seemed like Sachiko had disappeared without a trace, leaving no clues behind. As time passed, the case grew cold. For 10 long years, her husband never stopped searching for her, but in the end, he was left with nothing but regret. In May 1995, the police arrested Kamata Yasutoshi for the charge of murder. On October 25th of the same year, his trial took place at the Osaka District Court. The court decided to try Kamata's murders separately. According to Article 45 of the Japanese Penal Code regarding the aggregation of sentences, the case was divided into 2 parts, Case A and Case B. Case A included 3 murders, Higashi Chichi Sachiko, Chinen Ritsu, and Tsukuda Miyoko. All 3 murders occurred in Kamata's apartment in Tenkachaya, Nishi District, Osaka. Case B involved 2 murders, Uranishi Kazuyuki and Nakano Kimeko, along with several theft charges. The 2 murders in Case B took place in Kamata's apartment in Ebisu Nishi, Naniwa, Osaka. Looking at the entire case, it is clear that Kamata's method of killing had certain patterns. Despite the victims' different ages and social statuses, all the victims, except for the 9-year-old Miyoko, shared one commonality. They either worked or frequently visited nightlife districts in Osaka. All were murdered in Kamata's home and then disposed of in desolate places. Since Kamata chose his victims randomly, the cases seem to have no connection to one another. Additionally, over the course of 9 years of committing crimes, Kamata had moved houses more than 20 times, suggesting he was intentionally trying to evade law enforcement. As a result, it was only after Kamata confessed that the police were able to uncover the full extent of the serial killings. In March 1990, 11 years after the first murder, Kamata's trial took place at the Osaka District Court. In the dock, Kamata suddenly changed his statement. He adamantly claimed he was innocent, especially in the case of Tsukuda Miyoko, where he argued that he was not the one who had made the extortion calls to her family. Kamata claimed that the victims in Case B were not murdered by him, but by an acquaintance of his, and he had only helped dispose of the bodies. He also stated that he had been coerced into confessing falsely by the police. Kamata denied the theft charges as well. The police investigated Kamata's relationships and searched the area around his residence in Nishi District, Osaka, to gather information about the person he had mentioned. However, they found no information about this individual. The final conclusion was that Kamata was indeed the perpetrator of the crimes. The Forensic Science Institute at Teikyo University conducted voice analysis on the extortion call recordings from the Miyoko case. The results showed that the voice in the recording was very similar to Kamata's voice. However, Kamata's defense lawyer requested a re-examination. 2 years later, the National Research Institute of Forensic Science in Japan provided their final conclusion. Out of 121 voice recognition features in the extortion recording, only 10 characteristics matched Kamata's voice. Therefore, the institute concluded that the voice in the recording was not Kamata's. In January 1999, the Osaka District Court found Kamata Yasutoshi guilty of all charges and sentenced him to death. Kamata appealed the verdict to a higher court. In July 2005, the final appeals trial was held at the Supreme Court of Japan. The court upheld the death sentence for Kamata. The judiciary declared that the defendant showed no remorse, particularly for the murder of the 9-year-old girl and the extortion of her family, which were deemed cruel, merciless, and inhumane. 3 years later, in prison, Kamata remarked, "The country forbids murder, yet it still carries out the death penalty. I believe that is what truly constitutes murder." During the trial, both the police and the prosecution had pointed to him as the murderer. Even when he attempted to defend himself, the judge refused to listen. In 2011, after 6 years of detention, Kamata still stubbornly maintained his innocence. In the investigation forms, he cited high blood pressure and trembling hands as reasons for his refusal to testify. On March 25, 2016, Kamata Yasutoshi, 75 years old, was executed at Osaka prison. Prior to his death, he had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. The case of Kamata Yasutoshi officially came to a close after 34 years, with the cold-blooded man finally paying for his crimes. However, this sentence likely came too late for the unfortunate victims. Although justice had been served, the pain of the victims' loved ones remained, impossible to erase. This case serves as a powerful reminder of the dark side of society and the lasting consequences of crime. Justice may be delayed, but we cannot forget the valuable lessons it teaches. If this story has left an impression on you, don't forget to like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue exploring other memorable cases in future videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.